Well, we didn't need you on video, but we appreciate you showing yourself.
Oh, did I hit the wrong button? Am I not on video?
No, you are on video, but we don't need you on video. But we
Oh, well,
appreciate it.
well, all right. I'm sitting in the dark, so there's not much you can see because the light hums something fierce when I've got the light on. But yeah, so this is the microphone.
Well, then what we just need you to do is have some sort of front, like a light underneath, and you'd be like one of those like a creepy thing going on, like a scary movie. It'd be
Yeah,
great.
speaking of that, I just found out that remember that show from back in the day, Unsolved Mysteries?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Unsolved Mysteries is now available on Amazon Prime. The Robert Stack years. So I've been tempted all day long. That show used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid, but I've been tempted all day long to like either watch the show or just like put on a raincoat and say, join us. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good memory there.
Yeah, the first 3 seasons are now available on Amazon Prime. So super excited about that.
So you're going to be binge watching all that? Is that?
I'm not much of a binge watcher, but I could definitely see it like being something I would do when I should be doing something more productive than that.
I know exactly what that's like.
Yeah, I could see myself sort of grazing on it shamelessly.
Yeah, I did that recently where I was like, well, I should be editing the podcast, but, there's that DVD of The Last Starfighter. I'll go ahead and put that
Oh, yeah, of course. Fancy director's commentary and something like that. Do you guys ever get anything from Criterion DVDs?
I do not, no.
I believe it's Elf.
Okay, well there's an Elf Criterion. That's remarkable.
I think. Well, maybe it's another one I'm thinking of. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Well, Criterion is the like the Rolls Royce of DVDs. I have a Criterion release of Repo Man, which has like a 60-page booklet and 3 directors' commentaries and and a soundtrack album and it's just if you like Repo Man, it's the only way to own a DVD of Repo Man.
Totally immerse yourself into that movie. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, but the dangerous piece of knowledge is that you're on Criterion's mailing list. Twice a year, they do a 50% off flash sale where they give you a password and they say for 24 hours, everything in the store is 50% off, which is dangerous knowledge. But I've acquired all sorts of terrific works of cinema rendered exactly as they're supposed to be seen, with a ton of extra features thanks to that, for a modest price.
I was going to ask you, what did Repo Man set you back?
Oh, I think the original was like $55, and so with the discount it was like 22 out the door or something.
Okay, all right, not horrible.
No, it was for what it was a crazy bargain.
And to you, it's probably it's research, so it's like a tax
Yeah.
write-off, right?
Yeah, for like practically everything. I mean, I only did that for something that was available on Criterion, like Repo Man. But like for practically everything I watched for Brat Pack America, it was bootlegged or used crap copy that I got from eBay or Amazon or something like that. The average cost for those DVDs was about $4 a piece.
Yeah, I've been looking, and it's not something I decided to go online and look, to buy it and have it shipped to the house. But every time I'm out somewhere that there's let's say I go to a thrift store or I go to a flea market and there's like a bin of DVDs, I'm always looking for Some Kind of Wonderful. I have never found it.
Oh wow, that's a shame.
Yeah, just sit. I mean, if it's like on TV or something, it's like I have to stop and watch it. So it's not like I've not gone without watching it, but it's like I'd like to own it. But I don't want to go through the extra effort of going to Amazon and ordering it and putting the credit card and all that stuff. So I guess I'm kind of being lazy, but at the same time I'm like, it should be easily accessible. if I'm somewhere that has DVDs, somebody's got to be getting rid of it.
Yeah, no, I know this the spirit of what you're saying. Yeah, the equivalent of that is probably, the digital equivalent of that is probably finding it on eBay, someone getting rid of it for nothing.
Right.
But yeah, I would love to fish that out of a bin. Like that's part of, why I look for vinyl at thrift stores, because, the stuff I like on vinyl is typically the stuff that people get rid of at thrift stores. So every once in a while I find a prize.
What's your do you have like the coveted item that you're looking for, like on vinyl when you're looking around?
There's a Los Lobos album called The Neighborhood, which is fantastic, that came out like in the early 90s, right as vinyl was going away, that I've never been able to find for less than like $50. So that's probably one of them. I've been pretty lucky though overall. My tastes are not obscure enough that finding them on vinyl is difficult. I will say too, like, you can get a ton of like great lesser known 80s movie soundtracks on vinyl. Like one of my prized possessions is the American Flyers soundtrack on vinyl.
Wow.
Yeah, which is basically like one song you recognize, and then 9 one-hit wonder, 80s pop metal bands or something that never went anywhere.
Yeah, Scott, who's the other voice that you haven't met yet. By the way, Kevin, Scott, Kevin.
Hey, Scott.
Nice to meet you, Kevin.
You too.
And Scott's my resident, expert for the music thing, but more the heavy metal, 80s kind of thing. So he was doing a show a little while where they were going through each of the years of the 1980s, talking about their favorite hard rock and heavy metal albums.
Oh wow!
So yeah, that was quite a great podcast to listen to, that series. So I'm
Thanks,
hoping
Dave.
that you guys,
it
pick
was fun.
something, do something else along that same theme. That was really cool.
You'll have to send me that link. That's for my 40th. No, this would have been 3 years ago, so I think it would have been for my it would have been for my 40th birthday. My brother sent me came out to San Francisco and got us tickets to see Iron Maiden at the Shoreline Amphitheater, which is Bill Graham's old venue. It was the Live After Death anniversary.
Yeah. 30 years, right?
Tour, the 25th anniversary of the Live After Death tour.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Live After Death was 1986, so it would have been, this would have been 2011 or 12 or something like that. So
very cool.
That was pretty great. That was a great show. And
I saw the Power Slave concert by accident.
Oh my God! So you were what, 11 or something?
No, I'll be 50 this next year. So I graduated in 86.
Oh, okay. All right, you're a little older than me.
We trade you in when you hit 50, by the way, Scott. So
yeah, I know.
We're like Menudo. We'll trade you out for somebody younger.
I've been looking for replacements, so if I'll send my referrals on to you once I approach the date a little bit closer. So
that was a pretty great show.
Yeah, I saw it. A friend of mine, his older brother, just happened to have an extra ticket, and he goes, "Hey, do you want to go?" Like an hour before the show. I'm like, "Well, yeah, let's go." So I actually cruised down on the back of his motorcycle to
as one should.
Yeah, on down to the Long Beach Arena, in Southern California there, and
well done,
great show. So, wish I could remember who opened up for him though. That's always one of the things I like to talk about is opening bands.
Yeah.
Can I jump back?
Gentlemen, let's get.
I'm sorry, can I jump back to the records for a second? The vinyl?
Yeah, and then let's get this recorded because I want to make sure I give you the time.
Okay. Real quick, I want to just tell you one of my prized possessions that my wife happened to pick up at a garage sale, and it was just in a pack of like 25 albums, and she bought it for like $2, the whole box, Somebody just sell. And I have, it's called Christmas in the Stars, and it's the Star Wars Christmas album.
That's pretty great.
And
Yeah,
it's got John Bon Jovi's first lead performance on it.
there you go. Yeah, that's I would say that qualifies as a prized possession. That's pretty great.
Gem. It's a gem. It's like one of those. Yeah, I had no idea it was coming. She's like, "Here, check out this box I got." I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
look at what you found." So anyway, just
That's
had to share
pretty
that
awesome.
story.
Now, Kevin, did you like that TV or it's a TV movie?
Oh, the holiday. No.
Holiday
There's
special.
a difference between the holiday special and the Christmas in the Stars album.
Okay, all right.
I hear it's notoriously bad, and I am the kind of Star Wars fan that likes to take the original movies and like put them in a museum glass case and pretend that nothing has ever been done to taint their glory. So I've tried, because I'm that kind of fan, I've tried very hard to stay away from most of the. I mean, I've seen the reboots and stuff like that, but I've beyond owning Star Wars figures when I was a kid, I've never sort of participated in the ancillary stuff because the movies have a very pure place in my heart and mind.
Very cool.
The holiday special. I wish I could unsee it. So I'm.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
But it's a beloved for Scott. So we've
It is.
had many conversations about that on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Remind me what we're talking about today.
We're talking about your book. We're gonna.
Okay.
It's an exciting topic.
All right.
So, well, first off, I mean, I didn't tell you, but I mean, as soon as we connected, we started recording. Do you mind us using the dialogue that we just went through, or?
No.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I mean, it's not like we said anything bad, but I think the people that listen to us, we've gotten used to just being very casual with everything, and just natural conversation is cool.
No, go right ahead. And if someone burglarizes me for the American Flyers soundtrack on vinyl, I'll know who to blame.
Oh yeah, that'd be Scott's fault. That's not mine.
I am gonna look it up. I gotta find that now. I mean, intrigued.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great stuff. I mean, it's the what would you call it? It's the Avis to Breaking Away's Hertz, if you want to talk about bicycle movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but it's far from the best.
Yeah, Breaking Away is such a underrated great movie.
Yeah.
So Kevin, is it Smokler or Smokler?
Smokler, long O.
Okay, all right, because and that's when I saw you in person. I could have sworn they said Smokler, but I wasn't sure because when I'm looking at your book, it reads Smokler. So
yeah, it's a common mistake, but it is indeed Smokler, as a half dozen childhood nicknames will attest to.
All right, so let's go ahead and get the party started here officially, even though we are really already talking.
Okay.
Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight.
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Sur and the Kodan Armada. Get ready. Prepare for blast-off.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Remember, no matter where you go, there you are.
This is 80s Reboot Overdrive Podcast.
We were dancing just like Swayze when Jennifer Grey had a nose. Oh, how I miss the 80s, but I'm too young to really know. Too young to know.
Oh my god. That is like so dated.
This is 80s Reboot Overdrive, and I am Dave. Online, I've got 80s Autoverse Scott.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be back.
And we have our special guest, Kevin Smokler. who's author of an awesome book, Brat Pack America, a love letter to 80s teen movies. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin.
You're welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
And Kevin, I've got to tell you, this is probably just a great, unique idea for a book concept. I mean, I know that there's been many books on the John Hughes verse, if I can use that word. But this is the first time I've seen anybody concentrate on the locations and settings as kind of a official character for the movies, if you want to put it simply. How did you come up with this concept?
I wanted to do a book about 80s teen movies, and I brought that to my agent, and she said, that's great. There's been a lot of those, so what's unique about yours? And I didn't really have a good answer for her. So I started thinking about what I thought was great about those movies, and initially there wasn't anything I could say that made my book different from all of the other great books about the topic I had read. And so I just sat on the living room rug with a pile of DVDs and a pitcher of iced coffee, and I sort of double-fisted both of them until I couldn't see straight. And at some point I remembered my father, who is from Detroit, and loved to tell me about great things that happened in the Midwest, or came from the Midwest. He would say things like Studs Terkel, Midwest. Earth, Wind, and Fire, Midwest. To make me proud of the part of America that I grew up in. Mm-hmm. And I remembered when I was growing up, he said, John Hughes, Midwest. And I remembered thinking John Hughes is kind of inseparable from Shermer, isn't he? A town that he invented and is a composite of 7 or 8 small towns in the north suburbs of Chicago. And so I thought, is there something about where an 80s teen movie happens that makes it special? And I started listing out the movies, and next to The Goonies, I wrote Astoria or The Goondocks. Next to Back to the Future, I wrote Hill Valley. Next to Repo Man, I wrote Los Angeles, but then I was also but Valley Girl is also Los Angeles. And then Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a different Los Angeles. And then Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure says it's San Dimas, but is actually Phoenix. And I just sort of scratched my head, and it was getting late, and I just wrote Brat Pack America across the top of the legal pad, and then left everything on the floor and went to bed. And I woke up the next morning, and it was still there. And I emailed my agent. And I said, "What about this idea?" And she's like, "Works for me." And then from there, the boring stuff about how you sell a book and, a proposal and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much where the idea came from.
So now to get the book going, did you have to go to all these locations and do scouting, or did you just rely on connecting with people that had stories to tell about it?
Initially, I did as much research as I could without leaving home, because I was working with a sort of respected mid-sized publisher, and that didn't give me a lot of, and I had a pretty tight deadline, so that didn't give me a lot of time or resources to be flying all over the country. I was very fortunate that I could package research for this book with assignments I did for other publications, typically for Salon. So I was able to go to Astoria to cover Goonies weekend, and I was able, from my base in San Francisco, to drive to Santa Cruz for the day every summer when they show the Lost Boys on the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk.
Nice.
And most of the stuff in Los Angeles I could get to via a pretty cheap plane ride, and then my college roommate lives in Chicago, so I slept on his floor, and then he drove me around to the Ferris Bueller's High School and Jake Ryan's house and stuff like that, all in the north suburbs of Chicago. So I would say about 70% of them I was able to do. I have not been able to go to Mystic to visit Mystic Pizza. I have not been able to go to Brownsville, Oregon for Stand By Me Day, which happens every summer. I was able to go to the Outsider's house in Tulsa, but that was after the book was written. So I would say, about 70% of them, and some of them are still wish list items. I'm still waiting for a Legend of Billie Jean tour of Corpus Christi, Texas.
Nice. Love the obscure references here. There's some Legend of Billie Jean was not as it was a big movie, but man, that would be a really fun study to go and check out where they did all that stuff and where it took place.
I don't know
different.
why Corpus Christi, but I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I mean, it's nice when they pick places that not that many people really know about, or even the fictional places. But okay, being from Chicago, I know it's the world of John Hughes in that little area,
Sure.
and growing up as a teenager, in the mid '80s, it fit so perfectly into everything that I knew. So it really relates to a lot of the John Hughes films. Maybe not so much that necessary suburb, but I remember one time, me and a friend of mine, after we watched Weird Science, we're like, I know where this mall is. I've seen this mall before.
Yeah,
we hopped in a car. we hopped in a car. We were in the wrong mall. We went to the wrong mall. We went way out to, I think it was Romeoville or something, which is way, it's not even close to Northbrook. We thought it was just this one of the scenes where Wyatt and Gary get they're at the mall, and they get the icy
Slurpees.
dumped on the Slurpee dumped on them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and my friend was like, I swear I've been to that mall before. I know exactly where it is. So we hiked. We were living in the Addison area at the time, and hiked our way all the way out to Romeoville or wherever it was that we went. I can't even remember now. Could have been Plainfield. It was a long drive though. And
I was very
knowing now that most of it took place really a lot of it was even filmed in the north, right in that little northwest area and right near north area. We were way off base.
I was really surprised. I talked with people who grew up all over the greater Chicago area, from the south suburbs to all the way out, near the Wisconsin border, to people who grew up in, Zion and Waukegan up there, and a great many of them being, even growing up hell and gone from sort of where John Hughes did his thing, still felt like John Hughes was talking about them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the greater Chicago area, it was very, very similar in the way he portrayed it, no matter where he lived.
Yeah,
definitely. It was a beautiful thing. That's I think what one of the things that I hold so close to my love for John Hughes. It's just it's this very special place in my heart because I know the areas. I think Dave. Well, you were a teenager in Miami, weren't you?
No, it wasn't Miami. It was Central Florida.
Oh, Central. Okay. When did you move to the Chicago area?
Oh, that was after I got out of the Navy. So that was.
Oh, okay. So it was a little bit after you moved there, but anyway, or before. It was before you moved there. But it really made a lot of sense for me. So it was beautiful.
Absolutely. And, there's a ton of movies filmed in Chicago. One of the most fun parts about this book was spending time in places. Obviously, Chicago has more movies there, filmed there than you could shake a stick at, and people love, walking down Clark Street or Dearborn Street downtown and seeing where the Ferris Bueller parade happened and things like that, or where the motorcycle sequence in My Bodyguard happened. But or Blues Brothers, which was mostly on the south side, but definitely it was really great to talk to people who grew up in places like Bloomington, Indiana, that have not had a lot of movies filmed there, and their memories of breaking away, coming to town in the summer of 1978. Yeah, that was the America of this book. Was a huge bonus to writing it, and realizing that the image we had of teenagers on screen before this was largely teenagers in the Northeast and in California, and it was really the 80s teen movie that made the experience of growing up in America the experience of growing up all over America.
Now, when you were doing your presentation, when I saw you live, you were talking about the Hughes-averse. Shermer, Illinois, being, for, what was it, 4 or 5 different of his movies that you could visit, like, locations, within, like, a whole afternoon. Which movies were those again?
Yeah, you can very easily, so Cameron's house in Ferris Bueller, Jake Ryan's house in 16 Candles, Wyatt's house in Weird Science, the school from The Breakfast Club, and the school from, say the church from 16 Candles, and the school from Ferris Bueller. All of those are within 4 miles of each other. Mm-hmm. So you could do one swing and see all of those in an afternoon. And then if you want to expand it beyond teen movie, and then you can make it a detour down to Glen Ellen and see the locations from Lucas too. And if you want to expand that into the stuff that Hughes did that was more about family and less about teenagers, you could very easily take in, Uncle Buck's house and the McAllister's house from Home Alone, which I believe is in Winnetka, and a lot of the locations from She's Having a Baby too. They were all within 5 or 10 miles of each other, and they were all sort of pasted together to become this thing called Shermer.
Yeah, I haven't finished your book, so I'm sorry about this, but
no need to apologize.
But there was something that you brought up near the beginning of it, where it's like John had a whole universe built up of interconnected people that might be interacting with each other in this fictional Shermer, Illinois.
Yeah, it shows up. It doesn't show up much in the movies. You have to look very hard to see it in the movies. But as John Hughes conceived of the movies of his that were filmed in the north suburbs of Chicago, Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful, both written by Hughes but directed by Howard Deutsch, were filmed in Los Angeles. If you look at the movies of his that were filmed in Chicago and Chicagoland, in his mind, they were all part of the same universe. So the kids from The Breakfast Club probably knew Ferris Bueller, and Ferris Bueller's mom probably sat on the PTA with Kevin McAllister's mom, and Uncle Buck probably went bowling with, Samantha Baker's father or something like that. So, in his mind, they were all connected. And when he died, his kids dug up just reams and reams of paper and digital reams of files on disk drives of things he thought were happening in Shermer. He wrote plays about it, and novels and other screenplays, and it was as fleshed out as any fictional town ever has been.
It's funny. I actually worked for FedEx at the time, and I worked off of Shermer Road in Northbrook.
Yeah,
our building was right off of Shermer Road, down at the south end of it before it ends.
Absolutely. Yeah, the name, of course, the name was an inside joke, because the former name of Northbrook was Shermerville, and so he just called it Shermer because he thought it would be funny for all of his friends and neighbors who knew that.
It's a pretty short road, too. It's only like maybe 2 miles long at best.
Yeah, it'll take you past the Northbrook Public Library, obviously, where the Save Ferris water tower is, and it'll take you to one or two of the other locations. Shermer Road itself will take you to one or two of the other locations from the movie.
I believe one of the high schools is on there. I can't remember which one, but I think one of the high schools is on there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
One of the stories that stuck with me from your presentation was the Cameron house. That wasn't planned, what they did with the Porsche.
No, the Porsche rocketing off out of the glass pavilion in the back was entirely because they found that house, and they thought the house looked like the kind of place that Cameron and his, with father like he had, would live in, and originally the car was supposed to come out of the garage and come rolling down the driveway into the road or something like that. And no, it was all because they found that house in Highland Park, which is right around the corner from the house, from Jake Ryan's house, where the party in 16 Candles happened.
All right, Scott's correcting me. Ferrari, my fault.
Gambala.
Yeah, it was it was a actually not. If you want to be technical about it, now I'm putting on the nerd voice. If you want to be technical about
it, okay. I'm sure I had some listeners yelling at me on that one. So
yeah, none of them were Ferraris. They were all Mustangs with Ferrari fiberglass bodies over the top.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they couldn't get vintage Ferraris insured for enough for. They didn't have the money to insure vintage Ferraris. The only stuff that's actually a Ferrari is the close-ups when you first see the car. And for those, they used Ned Tannen, who was the executive at Paramount, who greenlit the movies, who greenlit Ferris Bueller. He was a vintage Ferrari collector, and so the close-ups were of his car.
And they rubbed it with a diaper.
Nope, they did not. I think they probably couldn't get within 10 feet of it, but.
Don't even breathe on it.
Yeah.
We'll drive it backwards.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, I've got to ask, who designed the book? Because it is super awesome.
Dude, I was going to say something about this. The cover is amazing.
I was really happy with the way the cover turned out. The way Rarebird works, or at least worked for my book, is they have two or three people on staff who are capable of designing the book, and yet sometimes they give credit, and sometimes they give credit to one. Sometimes someone says, "Oh yeah, that was my idea," and sometimes they don't, which generally means like all three of them thought of it, and or all three of them thought of one part of it, and nobody wants to take any particular credit. So I actually don't know who internally at Rarebird designed this, but it was the masterstroke of my publisher, and I will always be grateful to them for that because I think the cover is fantastic.
So you had to look at this cover and go, well, that's a done deal. That right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even look. I apologize. I did not even know this book existed until 3 days ago, so I haven't had a chance to read it really, and I apologize for that. But I am going to buy this book.
Oh no
just for the cover at this point. But I really want to learn about this stuff because this is part of my history. It's part of my life.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's really been the most fun part of doing this is. It's been great to travel, and it's been great to do stuff. Like I got to do a thing at New York Comic Con, and it's been really fun to be on, great podcasts and things like that. Really, the most fun has just been talking to people about their memories of these movies. And how someone was like, I mean, and of course, most of them are from childhood, but some of them are, I showed my kid this movie on the day of their bar mitzvah or something like that, or I got divorced 5 years ago, and watching Some Kind of Wonderful over and over again got me through it. I mean, these movies are really, really special, and of the 55 in the book, I would say almost all of them have held up remarkably well. So. You don't need me to tell you how great they are, but it was pretty evident to me spending 2 years with them how great they still are.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention about the design of the book is if you, which Scott you're not going to see because you don't have a copy, but if you open it up, the front and the back cover they look like it's like a VHS tape that you can just pull out.
Yeah, I can see it on the I'm looking at Amazon right now. I'm trying to order it. The sample that they give you from the Kindle version has the first, like the cover and then the VHS tape. Like if you would take it out of the cover of this, VHS cover or whatever, if you were to take it out, you would see that part of it. So I saw those two pieces, and then some of the.
Yeah, that was just that's brilliant 80s-ness.
It really is
what that is.
It really is.
Yeah, they really did a superb job, and who would have guessed that like a little tab and half a dozen rainbow-colored stripes, in parallel lines would be so evocative of something, but it really is. Yeah.
It's so simple, but it's so powerful, and for the people that grew up in that era, and they know this, they know exactly what it's referencing, and it's a draw. So you're going to get people to be able to pick this book up and go, wow, I just love the color. I got to see what's inside,
Yeah, that's the hope. That was the idea too behind calling it Brat Pack America. Was that the phrase Brat Pack, while only 6 of the 55 movies in this book are John Hughes movies, the phrase has come to stand in for 80s teen movie, the same way that Madison Avenue means advertising, or Wall Street means finance. it's become the word that stands in for the whole.
So you mentioned that 6 of the movies are only John Hughes, or only 6 of the movies are John Hughes movies. The other, I can't do math, 49?
Yeah.
Are those all teen movies, or are they a variation of just like from that era, the 80s?
No, they're all 80s teen movies, and those
Teen
were
movies,
I had to kind
wow.
of figure out what the parameters of that meant when I first did the book. And so what I came up with was that the main character has to be in high school or recently graduated from high school, as in the case of Breaking Away, and they have to be the main character, which was kind of which was a close call in a movie like Dead Poets Society, where where you could argue that the teacher is the main character, but then the sort of protagonist job switches to the kids about halfway through that movie. And I also sort of set up the boundaries of what an 80s movie was, because I didn't really know I didn't really know when I started researching what the first 80s teen movie was going to be, but I knew what the last one was going to be. And so in my mind, the last one was Heathers, the movie that literally blows up the genre. And at that point, since Heathers came out in March of 1989, I was like, okay, that's the death date right there.
Interesting.
What that meant is, like, there were some movies that people often consider part of that decade that I couldn't fit in. Like Say Anything is the one that people usually ask me about.
The 1990?
Say Anything was the summer of 89, but to me feels like an early 90s teen movie.
Gotcha. Does teen movies also qualify like early college?
No, which is why I couldn't.
So
which is
like
why
you didn't do
ironically,
Revenge of the Nerds.
No, which is why there's no Revenge of the Nerds, and which is why ironically in a book called Brat Pack America, there's no St. Elmo's Fire either.
Yeah, I was thinking that, and I'm like, no, there's no way he included that. It's just because the way you're describing it, I got it. So, but I did have to ask about Revenge of the Nerds because we did a recent episode on Anthony Edwards, and it's still fresh in my mind. So
yeah,
I had to find out if that was part of it because
he, along with someone, needs to do a film festival of 80s teen best friends, because he's definitely in there. Him and Curtis Armstrong and Bronson Pinchot. I mean, these were the great best friends of those movies. I would feel very comfortable arguing that, like, The Sure Thing and Better Off Dead and Risky Business, those are all lesser movies without the best friend characters.
That's not a bad idea for a topic, Dave. Maybe we should have maybe we should have Kevin back on for a best friends episode sometime.
I'd be happy to, but if you just want to steal that one and run with it, that's okay too.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Kevin, you're the cover of your book, and it even became your signature picture when we did a picture together at the event. Was the John Bender arm raised in a fist pose? How did you choose that as your signature move?
So Brat Pack America is my third book, and for each of the other two, the first event is always at Booksmith, which is my neighborhood bookstore in San Francisco. And for the first one, I thought it would be fun to wear a costume. So, apropos of nothing, I wore a Rocky robe, a Rocky boxing robe. And then for the next book, I wore a graduation robe and hat. And so it became just a thing I did. And so I was trying to come up with something for this book, and I said, well, it's John Bender on the cover, and dressing up as John Bender is pretty easy. Not a whole lot of time or expense goes into that. So I just wore a bunch of layers, and I was swelteringly hot. And then when they said, please welcome Kevin Smokler, and people clapped, I came out to the strains of Don't You Forget About Me, and then threw that fist in the air, and everybody knew what it was, and it just became something that was associated with events I did for the book.
And during your presentation, you even showed where you're walking across the field, and you kind of reenacted that.
Yeah, that was taken during the scouting trip my best friend and I did of the Hughesiverse. And when we found that field, which is not an athletic field anymore, which is why the bleachers and the goalposts aren't there, but it is still the field behind that school, I thought, well, what else do you do here but but reenact probably if there is an image that says 80s teen movie more than any other, it's the last shot of The Breakfast Club.
Yes, that's a wonderful shout out.
Yeah.
So as you're doing, the research for all these, and I mean, you have many wonderful stories. I mean, I remember one that you brought up around the where people were visiting the home of the Goonies, where you took it a little bit too, the fans took it a little bit too far and then kind of ruined it, So
yeah,
I mean, could you share that story with us, or are there any other stories like that maybe I haven't heard yet?
Yeah, I mean, the sad part about the Goonies is the Goonies day that I covered for Salon was the 30th anniversary, and so many people came to Astoria, 10,000 people, which effectively doubles the population of the city, that the family that owns the Goonies house simply had to stop welcoming visitors because A, there were too many of them, and B, people couldn't behave themselves. People were taking pictures of the inside of the house, and they were knocking over the garbage cans and trampling over the flowers, also that they could say they visited the Goonies house. And that's all well and good, but someone lives at the Goonies house, and it's private property, and there was a time, the family that owns the Goonies house has owned it since 2000. There was a time when they were more than willing to invite people to take pictures and see the inside of the house because people knew how to behave like neighbors and friends instead of like jerks. And unfortunately, because people couldn't stop behaving like jerks, the family now forbids people from coming to see the house, and the Astoria Chamber of Commerce that runs Goonies Day actively discourages people from visiting the house, which is a shame, but falls under one of those you can't have nice things categories. This is why we can't have nice things. And it's why it's a lesson. Like I didn't need a picture in front of the Goonies house. I was there to work. But it's a lesson I really took to heart when putting Brat Pack America together. I was like, I'm going to talk to people who have made or participated in some of the most important movies of my life. And it is my job. It is not my job to be an intrusion upon them the way these people were an intrusion upon the people who own the Goonies house. It is my job to to be a good neighbor and a good friend, and in my case, a professional, and to speak to how much their work not only means to me, but why their work is important. If this book was about how much these movies meant to me, it would be called, Kevin's Brat Pack America or something like that. Or it would be an autobiography, and the case would be less because it would just be one fan, crowing about movies that he loves. Instead, what I think I did is I said that these movies are important way beyond just me, someone like me who grew up with them. These movies have endured for really important, significant reasons. I mean, we're living in the universe these movies created, pop culturally speaking. And so when I got to sit down with Amy Heckerling and talk about that with her, I could have fawned all day long about how she made Fast Times at Ridgemont High and later Clueless, which are genius. But what I really wanted to do is respect her work as a filmmaker and as an artist, and to show that I had done my homework and my research. I kind of learned that lesson from how I saw people being disrespectful to the places and the artists that made these movies. It's a cry and shame, but when the Preston family that owns the Goonies house had to stop inviting visitors over, Sean Astin himself took to social media and said, "Please leave the Goonies house alone. That is my childhood, and you're trampling all over it." So I think it's a lesson for all of us. Like, part of being fans is showing a modicum of respect for the people who make the things you love. That they are people too, and deserve their deserve their space. They not only deserve their space, but they deserve your level. They deserve the same decency and respect you would extend to anybody.
Yeah, I could imagine gushing over meeting, some of these actors and actresses that we grew up with, from the Brat Pack or whatever. Just by chance meeting them, you'd just be in awe of them. But you just really want to be respectful, and you might just walk past them and say, "Huge fan," and just keep walking. That's
and if you want,
yeah,
and if you want the interaction to be meaningful, I mean, believe me, like, I consider myself very lucky. I got to talk on the phone with Savage Steve Holland, and if I want the interaction to be meaningful, I can sit there and talk about how great Better Off Dead is, but he's been hearing that for 30 years. So I can be one of 10,000 people who's said that to him, or I can be the person who has really took the time to look at his body of work and see what are the things he does with it, and what are the things he was trying to accomplish, and how Better Off Dead, and to a lesser extent One Crazy Summer, influenced an entire generation of comedy writers. If I do that, I'm having a meaningful interaction with someone whose work I admire, rather than just sort of drooling all over it.
Right.
So, with your research, has there been anything that has come up that you were like, "Wow, this floored me. I had no idea that this happened," or or was it pretty much all of it?
No, I mean, some of it I knew already just as a fan. Some things were really surprising to find out, like the fact that 16 Candles was not a hit when it came out, and it basically became a hit because of home video. Or that Savage Steve was only 24 when he made Better Off Dead, which means it's all the more remarkable. And that House Party, for example, debuted at Sundance in the early days of Sundance. And if you look at the program notes from Sundance of 1989, they talk about how House Party is this revealing look at a youth subculture, essentially saying that, hey, everybody at Sundance, I bet you've never seen black kids before. But yeah, I had no idea that House Party sort of came up through the same early independent film movement that, She's Gotta Have It and Sex, Lies, and Videotape and all of the sort of early hits that came out of Sundance did. It's that, I mean, you don't spend 2 years with something if those things don't happen at a fairly regular clip. And so you almost have to spend your time looking hard enough to assure that you're surprised and delighted. And of course it speaks to the richness of the 80s teen movie itself, that there's so much there that you can that the more you look, the more great stuff you find.
A lot of that stuff is timeless. I mean, it was done in the 80s, but we were talking about Molly Ringwald, and I had heard an interview with Molly Ringwald and her experience of sharing the Breakfast Club with her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because she was able to just see it from a different point of view, from a generation that's, I think her daughter was like 11 years old when she saw it, and that's you're talking
Anthony Michael Hall's character, and
right,
the pressure
right.
that was on him for the
very
grades, and she got really emotional in front of her mother Molly, and shared that with her, and that was just like, wow, that's the character that she related with and got out of that movie, and that's powerful even to this day.
Oh yeah. That Breakfast Club is really a very powerful movie. Everybody looks at it as, a lot of people see it as a comedy, and it was always fun, a lot of fun shtick, but really there's a lot of deep stuff going on in there for the teenage mind.
Yeah, it's a very dark, somber movie. I mean, it's essentially The Iceman Cometh or Long Day's Journey into Night in high school. I mean, and And it's one, but you bring up something really interesting, which is that for kids that didn't grow up at that time, it's remarkable when they graduate and what they gravitate. I'm sorry, to what. I have a number of friends whose kids are elementary school students who all love the Goonies. I didn't see the Goonies until I was 14 or 15. And then 6th and 7th graders, parents feel okay showing 6th and 7th graders Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And except I was in the 8th grade. I was almost in high school when that came out. So that wasn't my experience with it. And then because I wrote the book on them, I sort of see them all as one big group, but I'm really surprised that so many more people know, so many more people know Back to the Future than Real Genius.
And Real Genius is a great love that.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites.
So many more people know Fast Times at Ridgemont High than Valley Girl. Nobody thinks of Dead Poets Society as an 80s teen movie, probably because it takes place in 1959. Then again, Dirty Dancing took place in 1963, and we kind of do think of that as a teen movie from that time.
And Stand By Me would be the same thing. So
yeah, and Stand By Me, you're sort of looking at it from the other end of the telescope because those kids are about to go into junior high. Right. So I'm continually surprised by. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be, but I see them all as one big happy family, and most people have a more sort of fragmented experience with them. And so one of the things I like hearing the most when I talk to people who've spent some time with the book is they say, well, I've just spent the afternoon making lists of movies that I need to see and adding them to my Netflix queue, and I just want to dust off my hands and say, well, job well done. I guess I can retire now.
I'm curious. I'm dying to get this book. I just actually did order it, and I don't do Kindles and stuff, but I ordered the paperback. And I'm dying to see what other movies you're referencing because I feel that I've seen a lot of 80s movies that are not quite as well known as some others, and I'm hoping that you pull out some of those obscure, those hidden gems that a lot of people don't think about when they think 80s teen movies. I mean, everybody thinks about The Breakfast Club or 16 Candles or all the John Hughes flicks. But there's some other ones that I got to be really hidden gems that are that I'm really looking forward to digging in and finding out what you were talking about. So very excited.
I hope so. It was one of the things I had to make sure I did with this book is I wanted to make sure you could see everything that I spoke of in the book. Mm-hmm. So if a movie was out of print or not available on a streaming service, that disqualified it from being in Brat Pack America.
Really?
Because I thought it was just mean to talk about movies that you couldn't see.
Is there one specific movie like that you can think of that you could not find available that was really up in the forefront?
I had to make sure there was a DVD release of The Legend of Billie Jean, and there wasn't when I started researching for the book, but thankfully one came along because I really did want to talk about that movie. I've had a hard time finding a DVD release of Running on Empty, which makes me sad because that's a great movie, and had a couple of Oscar nominations, and for some reason is hard to come by on DVD. But yeah, I think there's definitely a few movies that I was not aware of until I started writing the book that I think are lesser known. I didn't know about Suburbia before I started putting this book together, and that was a really nice addition to this book. That's in the chapter about Los Angeles teen movies.
Which I'll also relate to. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
No.
I grew up in Chicago,
mm-hmm.
but I also grew up in Southern California. So I have two of the best worlds of movie making in the 80s that you can come across.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, being from I graduated in Huntington Beach High School in 86.
Mm-hmm.
So I was right in the meat of it, but my grandparents lived in Chicago, so I'd travel back and forth between summers and school, and it was just I was very, very fortunate to experience all of this firsthand. So anyway, so go on. Sorry.
No, so I was glad that there were some more that there was a few sort of lesser known things in there. In the chapter on technology, there's a couple of movies. There's a movie called The Manhattan Project and a movie called My Science Project, which were definitely more obscure, and they're sort of wedged in between, real genius and weird science and war games. But I would say it was important to me that there be overlooked gems, but everything be gettable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just so you know what you're kind of in for, Scott, even at the beginning of each of these chapters, what Kevin does is he even has like the movies discussed in the chapters. So like Los Angeles teen movies, it says Valley Girl, Karate Kid, Suburbia, Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, The Sure Thing. And then you go to chapter 4, you're on Beat Streets and House Parties, and that's like Wild Style, Beat Street, House Party, Crush Groove. And then sport movies, chapter 6, All the Right Moves, Vision Quest, Caddyshack, Better Off Dead, Johnny Be Good. So, this is going to be a plethora of just...
Nice.
Yeah.
Johnny Be Good. That's a good one.
It's not a good movie. It's a...
No, it's a good reference, though, because I even though it was kind of one of the, it was like that wah, wah, wah moment for Anthony Michael Hall after he was doing so well, it was still something that I enjoyed because it was still part of that little era, and it was a college movie, so.
No, it was a high school movie.
He was high school football.
Yeah.
He was going
to college, right.
So what I found out from watching this terrible movie again was, and I didn't expect it to
bad version of Johnny Be Good.
Terrible version. Yeah, I didn't expect it to add up to anything, but I found out that the movie was filmed in Austin, in Central Texas. And it is a movie about the excesses of high school football recruiting, and it was being filmed in Texas at the exact same time as SMU's football program was being given the death penalty by the NCAA for excesses of recruiting high school football players.
Wow.
And so simply because this movie was filmed in Central Texas at the time it was filmed at, it goes from being, without intending to, it basically fell ass backwards into it. Without intending to, it goes from being this totally forgettable, one chuckle comedy to being kind of a proto Friday Night Lights. Because, if the movie comes out in the spring of 1988, that fall is the season that is featured in the book Friday Night Lights. Of course, across Texas, 1,000 miles or 800 miles to the west in Odessa, but this stupid movie about excesses of high school football predicts, again without meaning to, an entire sort of American pop culture enterprise about exactly the same thing. From that, it's a short road from Johnny Be Good. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's a short road from Johnny Be Good to the book of Friday Night Lights, and then the movie of Friday Night Lights and the TV show, and really sort of the definitive sports movie and television franchise of this century.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of see a strong parallel to Blue Chips. I don't know if you remember that
movie
or not.
Yeah. The sports movie immediately after the 1980s goes from being the most important thing in the world to do is win at something, which is what Vision Quest and All the Right Moves and all those movies are about, to what are the costs of the most important thing in the world being winning. And so from that you get Blue Chips and The Program and Johnny Be Good, strangely enough, and then you get the sports movie kind of diversifies in that decade. It becomes historic. You get movies like Seabiscuit and Remember the Titans, which are all about sort of historic sports victories. And you get sports as a metaphor for kind of, the searching of the human soul, a movie like Jerry Maguire or something like that.
Yeah. And side note, a happy birthday, April 4th, 1965, to Mr. Robert Downey Jr., who was in Johnny Be Good.
He was. He would be a good
Another
person.
one of the best friends.
Yeah, for the Best Friend Film Festival, he'd be a really good person.
Yep.
Gentlemen, I got to go in a second. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before I do?
Yeah, actually, I was just about to do the same thing and wrap it up because I wanted to respect your time. But I want you to be able to tell our listeners how they can, A, get the book and stay in contact with you.
Absolutely. The book is called Brat Pack America, a love letter to 80s teen movies. It is, of course, available at your favorite local independent bookstore, but also anywhere online where you buy books. My name is Kevin Smokler. You find out information about me at kevinsmokler.com, Smokler, and I spend most of my social media time on Twitter, where my Twitter name is Weegee, Weegee.
And that's definitely how we've been interacting a lot is via Twitter. So he retweeted the John Bender pose picture of us together. So all good stuff.
I'll retweet anything you guys do. The 80s themed podcast is our those are my sisters and brothers.
Yeah, we're all one big happy family. So.
One big neon mulleted happy family.
Mulleted, yeah. So
yes, we are. You should
business
see,
in front, party in the back.
I could share some pictures, buddy.
So, Kevin, I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, gentlemen. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Yep. Take care. Bye-bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.
It was good. One of those talkers that can keep going. That's awesome. That's what you look for.
Yeah, I mean, he had basically had kind of a slideshow that he was doing of just different locations, that are around that's in the Hughesverse. When he was talking at the library, and he also had the location manager that worked with John Hughes, Billy Higgs, and they were just sharing stories, and it was just fascinating. So right now I'm only on chapter 3, but it's a great book.
Well, I can't wait to get it now.
Yeah.
Dude, the cover blows my mind.
Yeah,
it nails it. The cover is just awesome.
Yeah.
The sleeve, the VHS sleeve with the little section where you grab the VHS to pull it out. I mean,
it looks as if
it
you
looks
could
like
pull it out, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
totally.
And I like the map that's in there that kind of shows the the locations for the different movies.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like looking at
it's got a map in it.
Yeah, there's like
nice.
On both of the inside covers, there's a map that has like if you want to look at New York, it's got like it says Beat Street, Fame, Crush Groove, The Warriors, Wild Style. And if you look at, like L.A., you've got all the L.A. movies, The Better Off Dead, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, House Party, Karate Kid, Pretty in Pink, Real Genius, Repo Man, Some Kind of Wonderful, Suburbia, Valley Girl, Hill Valley, Sherwood, Ohio. So, so all these different movies. I mean, War Games is in the upper left-hand corner, as you would expect for Washington State, Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of cool. So
yeah, it's I'm really excited about all the different things that we didn't get to talk about, like all the different movies that he's talking about. What did he say? 55 movies. And
I don't know if it actually says it here in the book or not, but yeah,
I think he said 55 movies that he references. I'm like, man, that's a lot of 80s teens movies that I don't remember seeing that many, but I probably have.
Yeah,
I'm sure that a few will pop back up.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here looking. See chapter 10. what Chapter 9 says. Let's see. Movies discussed: Breaking Away, Footloose, The Goonies, Stand By Me, Mystic Pizza, The Lost Boys. Chapter 8. Find Chapter 8.
Yeah, I didn't even get to ask him about The Lost Boys. That was like one of my top things, too.
Oh, here you go. Over the Edge, Taps, Bad Boys, River's Edge, Legend of Billie Jean, Running on Empty, Heathers.
River's Edge. That's a great movie.
Bad Boys.
You know that one?
No, I kind of, my brain stopped at Bad Boys. I love that movie.
That's a great one. Yeah, we've talked about that one before a couple times with Miss Ali Sheedy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, River's Edge, dude. I recommended this to Rose a couple weeks ago, and it's a great movie. I don't know if you've seen it ever, but really?
No.
Crispin Glover, Dennis Hopper. Oh, it's good stuff, man. It's very dark and just weird and quirky, but it's not I don't know if we'd call it a comedy.
Well, I mean, anything that has Crispin Glover in it, it's got to be weird, so.
It is weird because he's a strange dude.
He is.
Did you ever see him on when he did the I think it was Letterman. A Letterman interview?
No, I did not see that.
Oh man! If I can find it on YouTube, I'm gonna send you the link.
Was it in the 80s or was it after?
It could have been early 90s, but it was right around that, right after his his popularity, because after that he kind of went away, never saw him again. But
right,
I don't know if he was doing some kind of character shtick or something, but it was very interesting. Hey, I found some kind of wonderful DVD for $4.50.
Where?
With $3.99 shipping on eBay.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So, and like I said, it's like one of those things where I want to just kind of discover it. I'm like,
yeah,
kind of like Rose when she like goes to one of the thrift stores or whatever, and then all of a sudden she's like, "You'll never believe what I found." That's kind of the moment I'm looking for this. It's not like I'm, I know it's I can easily go online and just go to like Amazon or something and buy it. I mean,
all right. Well, I will only buy it for you if it's by some weird fluky chance that I come across it.
Okay, fair enough. As long as you and tell me how you happenstance upon it.
I would give you the full rundown.
But I mean, even if it's like I'll even if I'm at Walmart or something and I see one of those
$5 bin,
the $5 bin there, I'll dig a little bit just to see if it'll pop out. And I've yet to come across it. So
I'll put it on my radar.
Yeah, I don't know why it's been elusive, but I figure sooner or later I'll run across it, and it'll be like, I'll have to get it at that point. It's not like it's one of those where it'll be like I need to make a decision on whether to buy it or not. It'll be like, well, I have to now.
Yeah, you're not gonna. Yeah, here we go. Crispin Glover or Letterman. Oh, that's good. He's been on there a couple times apparently. Once in '87. Like 2 months in a row. In July of '87 and on August of '87. So I'll have to watch which one, because one of them he gets really weird. Oh, and then there's one later on in '92, but I got it.
Okay. Yeah,
all right,
send
man.
me the link.
Cool. We'll do. Are we good?
Yeah.
So Rose needs a sabbatical now. You
Yeah,
take your time off.
Yeah, it looks that way.
That's good, because in May I may need my time off, because we're going to be completely gutting our kitchen and all of the tile throughout our living area, and our house will be under full construction for like probably a good 3 weeks. So
are you doing all that construction yourself?
No, I have a crew.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, we're doing some we're subbing it out to some guys, but we are doing some of the work ourselves, but me and
kind of offsetting some of the cost. I got you.
Yeah. And being in the industry now, we can get products at cost versus retail.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
That's where we're going to save most of the money, I'm sure.
So you're going to get kind of nicer ended stuff, but because you get
Well,
it cheaper.
no. Our budget is only allowing us to do it because we can get it cheaper.
Oh, okay.
You know what? Did you follow?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to have like stonemason, tiles,
Mm-hmm.
No.
Nope.
Right.
We still have to be frugal.
Okay.
So, but it'll be fun.
So you'll still have linoleum down then. All right, fair enough.
Not quite that frugal.
Linoleum and shag carpet. Yeah.
No, there will be before and after pictures, and I will show you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to shag carpet and the panel walls.
Wood paneling?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly what I'm looking for right there.
Just like Grandma's basement.
Say that again?
Grandma's basement?
Oh, no. The basement from our favorite book.
The basement. Oh. The basement from your favorite book?
Ready Player One.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
dude, we had, my grandparents had wood paneling in one of the rooms in the basement and some shag carpet, and it was the place to be, man.
What color carpet?
It was a yellowish orange.
Oh, that's good stuff there.
Yeah, it was more yellow than orange, really, but it was just, and it was like it wasn't the really long shag, but it was like thick fibers.
Yeah. That's 70s right there. That's 70s goodness.
Yeah, we had some good 70s stuff going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Then we'll have to figure out what's next week. Maybe we'll do finish up the Stand By Me series.
Yeah, I mean we kind of left that kind of open ended, and it's been kind of hanging out there. So it's a good idea to wrap that up.
Yep. So, well, we missed you while you were away, Dave.
Well, that's so good. But I heard that you also renamed the podcast.
What are you talking about? Oh, 80s Overbite.
So I've been waiting for a little bit of time to pick on you about that.
Dude, that was awesome. I was so tongue-tied that night, it was terrible. I just could not spit anything out.
Like, what is he talking about? Overbite? Who did I leave in charge?
80s Reboot, Overdrive, 16 Cannibals.
Yes. But no, I mean, you guys had a great discussion there with the villains, so that was a good show to listen to.
It was fun, actually. I just listened to the first half of it a couple days ago, and then I listened to the rest of it today, along with the Paul and Robert, their 80s villains.
Oh, okay.
And actually, Robert and I picked the first same villain.
Oh,
or not.
okay.
No, it wasn't his first, but we both picked Victor Maitland.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that bugged me is you guys didn't give me a shout out for Gary Busey.
Okay, I wish I could. Can I make a copy of that?
What?
Let's see. I have commentary with Rose. Hold on, give me a second here.
Well, I mean, even if you play it, it's not like I'll be able to hear it.
No, I won't play it, but I'm going to read it to you.
Well, you're taking show notes as you were talking?
Beforehand.
Oh, okay.
I made notes.
As you do. Sure.
So, we got talking. I had all those tongue twisters, or just all those bloopers, right? And I said, after the show, I sent her a message, says, I swear I was not drunk. She said, LOL. I said, not yet, it's only Tuesday. She said, remind me to tell you my booze story next time. And then I sent, I forgot Dave's pick. I'm never going to hear the end of that.
Yeah, I give you one job.
Yeah, and that was at, what time was that? 8:32 p.m. So it was right after the show. I'm like, oh crap! I forgot Dave's pick. Gary Busey. No.
Yeah, you missed for Joshua, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a great pick, too, by the way. That was great.
I don't think anyone else, like any of the other blogs, or had brought him up.
Nope. And you would have been standing alone.
Yeah.
With one of the best picks of the 80s.
Yeah, it was just before he got really freaky in his own right, you know. I mean.
Oh, yeah, he got weird.
Yeah, but that was just one of the iconic, well, not iconic, but one of the roles for him that was just like, that's Gary, that's awesome. So he kind of like transcended himself, you know, and you forget it's him. That's why when I mentioned it before when we were talking with Rose, and she was like, he wasn't in that movie. Because it's like you kind of suspend Gary Busey as the actor because he is just this Mr. Joshua.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love when an actor can do that.
Oh yeah. So, all right, man. I will. We'll shoot for next week. You know, the Sunday night thing is, my wife has been like vetoing that lately because she's like, no, Sunday nights. You know, we want to kind of spend time together. If you want to do it during the week, that's better. So if we can start changing it up, that'd be great.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to see how the kids' sports schedule aligns.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's got baseball starting, and then he's also doing a spring hockey league thing. So I can't be one of these. All right. Well, you got to go drop them off and pick them up, and I'm going to go upstairs and podcast. So.
Yeah. No, I get it, man.
Yeah.
So we'll just we'll figure something out.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
All right. I'll talk to you later, bro.